Hola mi gente, today we're going to talk about which language you should learn, Spanish or French. So I've learned both these languages. I learned Spanish since I was like 13 in middle school, and I learned French starting when I was 18 or 17 last year of high school, and I studied it in college as well. I've gotten to use both these languages. I've used Spanish all throughout Latin America as well as the US, from Mexico down to Chile and Argentina, and also over in Spain when I lived there for a year. And then French, I've gotten the chance to use when I've been in France, when I've been in Belgium, when I was in Morocco. Morocco is probably the most fun I had with French, and I'll tell a little bit about that story here in a second. But let's start off first with the similarities. So if you're an English speaker, which I assume you are if you're watching this video, they're going to both have basically the exact same grammar, which means it's going to be more or less the same in terms of having to learn how the new language functions. Although Spanish is slightly easier, right? Particularly because the pronunciation is a lot simpler. They're both great languages if you're looking to get into reading literature. They have all kinds of options, whether you choose Spanish or French. Both provide great travel benefits, although to slightly different areas, right? And both are hugely in demand for like professional opportunities if you want to take it to that level. Which one should you pick, right? For me, as a person who loves to travel, this mostly came down to one, ease of being able to practice, with Spanish being a little bit more simple. There's a lot of Hispanic people in the US versus French is a little bit harder to find in order to practice, right? And then also travel benefits, right? When I first started learning Spanish, I was really interested in like Latino culture in Latin America and traveling around. And so I chose Spanish because it gave me access to so many countries that were so close to the US that I could go and explore for cheap. Now, French also has a ton of travel benefits as well. Specifically, you get a few countries in Europe, namely France and Belgium, and parts of Switzerland. You have a lot of Africa, what was once at colonial France, where you can get away with speaking French, although it's a little bit mixed up with the languages that are from there. So sometimes not always the easiest, but you can get around, as I did when I was in Morocco. And then you also get Haiti and Canada, specifically Quebec. And Haiti, probably not going to want to go right now because it's currently being controlled by gangs. There's no real law and order, so probably not the best country to go visit right now. And then of course Spanish, you get everything from Mexico, all of Central America, Colombia, Peru. If you want to go see Machu Picchu, you're going to need Spanish. Chile, Argentina, you want to go snowboard, ski, and do things like that, see the Patagonia, Spanish will definitely help you out. I would also say that Spanish is the pick if you want a little bit easier time learning the language, because Spanish is phonetic. Every letter you see is exactly pronounced the same way, just every single time. There's no variation depending on where it's at in the sentence, what it is doing in combination with none of that, right? Every letter you see it and you pronounce it, right? And in fact, this got me into trouble when I first started learning French because I wanted to pronounce everything, and I remember my French teacher yelling at me, saying, "Don't say every single letter," right? French is a lot more like English in that aspect, in that there are more patterns than English, so you can pick up just being able to look at it and be like, I know how to pronounce this word even if I've never heard it before. Versus English, you kind of have to hear the word in order to be able to say it, but it is slightly tougher on the pronunciation aspect than is Spanish. As well, Spanish is going to be a little bit easier on some grammatical subjects. The big hard one, which is the subjunctive, exists in both languages, but there's a couple of smaller things that are super frequent in French that you don't have to deal with in Spanish, making it a little easier. And then Spanish is also probably a lot easier to practice. There's so many Latinos and people who've come from all over Latin America into the US that being able to go find practice, whether that's like going to a meetup with other Spanish learners or walking into your local Spanish supermarket and being able to practice, is going to be a lot easier, right? If you want to practice French, on the other hand, you're typically not going to find like a French store, like French from France is a little bit harder to practice, right? But you might be able to find some kind of like African store where people speak French and you can get away with it. I did this in Kentucky when I was studying French, so it is possible, right? But it's not. I personally have had great experiences with both of these languages. Spanish has let me travel and live in Mexico and in Spain, climb up a volcano in Guatemala, go surfing in Costa Rica. I went to see Cusco in Peru. I got to surf there as well. I went to Patagonia this last fall. There's no complaints from me from Spanish. Spanish is an awesome language. On the other hand, French has gotten me, in France, not as much. I didn't really like, well, I was really only in Paris, to be fair. Didn't have the greatest time there. But Belgium was really cool. I've met lots of Swiss people who I speak French with, and it's really fun. It's cool. It's a language I like. Right? Probably the funnest story that I had was in Morocco, where as I was walking around the downtown, I came upon these guys who were like, started talking to me, and I responded. I was like, obviously I don't speak Arabic, but luckily there was one kid there who spoke French, and we were able to communicate, right? I kind of talked to him, he kind of translated, and then whatever they said, he kind of translated back to me into French. Both can be used in that situation of traveling, getting around, and seeing people. And whichever language you pick, you're going to have basically the same amount of difficulty in learning it. You're going to end up with a language that's going to be super useful professionally and personally for travel. And you're also going to get tons of stories and get to connect and meet people that you would not have been able to otherwise. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed what you saw, be sure to like and subscribe and all that stuff. If you have any questions about Spanish, French, anything you need help with in either of those two languages, be sure to drop it in the comments down below, and I'll be happy to help out. Otherwise, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.